Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Season 3 premiere of Invincible. Great season premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, it's been 3 months since the Season 2 finale, and Mark has been training. He's getting faster. He's getting stronger. Obviously, Cecil's putting him through the work, doing some heavy lifting, trying to get from the moon to Earth. Well, specifically, very specific position on Earth, because he's like, right, could have done that faster, but I got lost along the way. It's like, Jesus, Mark, your sense of direction is horrendous. I mean, it's like, you could probably put Zorro to shame, but it's, hey, you're like going supersonic speed back to Earth, probably, not like you're the smartest person in the world either. You're probably like very average knowledge wise. So obviously you don't know where a lot of places are. So like I get it from atmosphere perspective, it's hard to determine like, where am I? Like, it's a little more complicated than I'm giving you credit for, I mean, it's not like, hey, I don't have the power to fly. And even I don't know where everything is on the, in the map when you're looking at the world. So I'm going to take that back and cut him some slack. But yeah, I even love him training against that giant, and I love that the parents had to bring his kid, because it's like, okay, thank you for allowing this to happen. We're going to work on a cure to find your kid, because he's still only 8 years old, because they fought, the Guardians fought this guy last season, and it's like, yeah, he's a little kid stuck in that form, so I thought that was interesting. So either way, Mark is, enjoying, getting stronger, doing my thing. Him and Rex, who, is asking about how he still has to get maintenance on his hand. He's like, I can't even use my middle finger. And Mark's like, oh, that's your favorite finger. And he's like, yes, my favorite finger. Cecil, it's his favorite finger. And it's just kind of like, okay, like there's the Declaration of Independence got stole. So Mark goes, handles that, and then kind of brings Rex along, which Rex is like, F you guys for me being a second thought. You're just immediately like, hey, Mark handled that, even though I'm literally standing right here. And even you were like, oh, Mark is like, oh, we should bring Rex along. It's like, shut up. You guys suck for even making me an afterthought. So they show up. We're dealing with some people. So we're not dealing with dimension multiverse stuff, but we are dealing with time travel, because these guys are from the future, which is so interesting because they are still in the Declaration of Independence for whatever reason, and the moment Mark and them get there, because the guy's like, oh, we got enough time, like 3 minutes before the cops get here, but Mark and Rex show up, so I'm like, were you not accounting for that? Because I'm curious, like, are they going to be a little bit of like, are they kind of supposed to be this universe's version of like Booster Gold? I know what the future holds, go back in time. No, it seems like they're doing it for some other reason. It's not like the glory reasons why Booster does what he does. So I'm curious what their circumstances are. So that was really interesting. So I guess that's a plot thread we'll pull on at some point in time. It's just that little thing, and it's just kind of like, once again, this show has so many plot threads. You're like, when are we going to circle back to that? Maybe later this season, maybe not. I don't know. We might pop back to that every once in a while. We'll see. Once again, I've only seen the first episode of the season so far. There's 2 more, so that plot thread could pop up in those next 2 episodes. But also the surprise was Multi-Paul, Kate's brother. Because we did meet him, he's in a background of one of the prison scenes in, the first season. And you're like, oh, he has a multiplication ability. So you're like, the duplicating ability. So it's like, is he related to Kate? And so, yeah, that's her brother. And he comes and attacks Rex. Because, I get it. Your sister's dead and you blame someone. It's like, because it's like, I don't know if he knew what was going on between Rex and Kate at one point in time. It's like, well, to be fair, it's like, at the time she was dating a mortal, and to be fair, it was only Ray, Rex, and Kate. So there wasn't like the full roster of the Guardians. So, but also I get it. It's your sister. You have to take your rage out on somebody, because everyone else is. We don't. Well, the people that were there, I don't know if the king of the Lizard League is dead or not. Rex did fuck him up, but I don't know if he's dead. You did take bone to the face. You were literally stabbed in the face, so he might actually be dead. I don't know. Either way, the others definitely are. But when it comes to like I said, it's understandable. And I'm like, oh, that's sad, considering, well, we know Kate's still alive, and luckily she shows up to tell her brother, yo, it's not that easy to kill us. Because I wonder, does her brother not follow that same rule or not? Or maybe he does, but he thought no. He probably doesn't know, maybe he does. I don't know, because it's the fact is that never even crossed his mind, but I guess he thought, like, if they confirmed Kate's dead, that must mean all her copies are dead. Like, she herself is dead. So I wonder, does he just operate differently than she does, or what? Because even the Kate that showed up wasn't the Kate. Kate's still back at that cabin hidden away, because the one that showed up with Immortal is 1. She's 0. So, and I think the smallest number we saw amongst her siblings, her brother, was 1 as well. So he must be in the same boat. I wonder when he ended up breaking out of prison. It might have been around the same time maybe the Molar twins broke out in season 1 because of Robot or Rudy. So I'm curious if that's when, or sometime in between season 1 and this season, he ended up breaking out. It had to probably be more recently, considering Kate, quote unquote, died last season. So it probably was a lot more recently that he broke out. Probably when news finally got to him about Kate. So, and I think this was an interesting thing, because it was kind of set up to be like Mark taking down Kate's brother, and he's like, no, Kate, like, the fact of the matter is he allowed the bad guys to get away with the Declaration of Independence, and he almost killed Rex. So yeah, he has to go back to prison. I think that's an interesting thing, because I'm like, it's just a small thing there, but that plays such a that whole element of like Mark's stance on that is so like firm, it's so black and white, that you're like, that is definitely going to influence the rest of the season, but also just like the later parts of this episode. I'm sure, I think just in general, that's probably going to play a massive role in Mark going forward, of being very black and white about things and not seeing the gray in some cases. We'll have to wait to see, but once again, he was driven by grief. It's understandable. And obviously Rex is pissed, because he's like, yo, me and Ray thought you were dead. Like, that's because I'm sure Rex had survivor's guilt of, I survived. Luckily Ray did too. But I thought, like, yo, I cared about you. I thought you died. And, especially because regardless of, he was cheating with her on Eve, it's still a thing of, you were someone he cared about at one point in time, and he recognizes how much of a dick he is. He had a lot of growth, and near-death experience will do that to you. So, but obviously the Guardians have kind of reunited, because not only is Kate and Immortal back, because Kate just needed time away from everything, because it was just becoming overwhelming, dying over and over and over again. Eventually it takes its toll, but it's like, right, the Earth needs us. I guess they might have gotten word about the Viltrumite situation, so it's like, yeah, we kind of, like, Earth needs us, but also, like, we have a responsibility as superheroes. I'm sure a lot of that conversation played out for them, but they're back. Also, they're engaged, so that's cute. And then also Ray's back. I love that Rex is like, oh my god, like, I'm so glad we're alive, because, and she's like, losers? He was like, I was going to say too hot to live, too cool to die, but yeah, sure, whatever, losers is fine as well. But yeah, like, the Guardians are back at full strength now, so that is kind of nice, especially when you consider the fact is all of the OGs, well, I was about to say not all the OGs, because Immortal's still alive, but it's like, yeah, this little squad, the Guardians 2.0 is still around, so that's kind of dope in comparison when we thought we were down people and everyone survived. I can't remember if I talked about this last season. I do believe that situation plays out differently in the comics, having never read it. I feel like I vaguely remember people talking about, like, I don't know if it's a thing of all 3 of them die in that situation, because I don't know if it was those 3 specifically, Ray, Kate, and Rex, in that situation in the comic, or whether it was 3 different characters or some amalgamation. I just feel like I remember, like, someone or some people do not survive that, whether it was all 3 of them or just some of them. Like, there is permadeath in that situation. I think the Kate situation might play out the way it did in the comic, but I don't know about the Rex and Ray of it all. So I feel like I have a vague memory of that, but, like, I'm sorry, I don't fully remember. And once again, that's just because of my unfamiliarity with the comics, but I just feel like I remember hearing someone talk about that, someone who was more familiar with the comic talk about that. Aside from all of this, you also have Mark, his brother's getting older, and obviously quickly, like, he's already, like, probably in, like, the higher single digits. Like, I don't know, maybe, like, he's probably, like, 6, 7, 8 or something like that now. Obviously very smart. He apparently has a really good memory. I wonder, I'm sure, it's probably going to be a thing of Oliver probably gets the smarts in the family type of thing. we don't know how intelligent Nolan is. I think Debbie's pretty intelligent, so I don't know if that's kind of like more of their mom rubbing off on him than it might have in Mark's case. I mean, who knows? Like, Mark seems like he's kind of like, no disrespect to Mark, because I say this as someone who was like a very average student myself, and then maybe Mark's kind of average, and it feels like Oliver's definitely like a genius, like above average, but probably teetering on genius level. But either way, once again, we'll have to wait to see how that plays out. But I'm wondering that's going to be one of his strengths, not only having the powers like his brother and his dad, but also having maybe more intelligence and being smarter than Mark. I'm also curious, is Debbie ever going to talk about his biological mom? And it's like, once again, even if he went back, she's long gone, obviously, even by this point, you know? So I'm curious, because she was already old by the time Mark left with him. So I'm curious, like, does Debbie or Mark really talk about her? Because Mark did spend time on Thraxa for a bit helping, so he probably got to know her and spent a little time with her, so he probably got to know her obviously better than Debbie did. But still, I'm curious about that conversation, because he just straight up, because she is mom regardless of it all, like how much he knows about his own situation, his biological mom, we don't know how much of that's been talked about yet, how much he knows about Nolan, you know, because obviously he's working with April, so he doesn't have I mean, it's understandable, he's also purple, so like how do you hide that? But I think it's interesting because Debbie later on puts on makeup to like give him like human flesh colors, you know, so he looks like Mark and her. I guess that's just going to be a thing going forward, because it's like he won't ever have like a normal life, because April's saying like, right, he's growing rapidly, but he'll even out around puberty. So I guess maybe around then, once he gets there, he'll probably reach a certain age and just kind of stay that way for a while, just like Mark will probably look the way he does for a while. I'm sure, like, you know, obviously if you're more familiar with the comic, you probably know what age Mark really drastically starts changing. I don't think it's until like he gets into, because I've seen images of Mark as he's gotten older, and I think the oldest I've seen, like, I think was like 90 something, and he looked relatively the same. And I could be misremembering. It's like maybe a picture of him from the comic when he was like 95, I think, or something like that. And like I said, I can't remember. So yeah, I just thought that was fascinating. And obviously he wants to be a superhero, because we find out, hey, he's got his powers. Understandably, considering the Thraxan, like, isn't that his people? Am I confused? Because the planet is Thraxa, right? Because that's why I'm wondering if I might be conflating that with like the Flaxans. I think I might be, but whatever the case may be, Oliver's species ages have extremely rapidly, and you combine that with a Viltrumite's longevity, like, once again, who will have an extended life, but it definitely won't be nearly as long as like Mark or their dads. But he'll definitely outlive like any human, you would assume. But I mean, who knows? He might end up having, like, for his species, he has a very extended life cycle that might, maybe at the end of the day, it's closer to a human's, maybe. Who knows? But because Mark didn't get his powers until 17 or something, it might be just the human element to the DNA, and maybe the same thing. But his brother's developing at a faster rate because he ages a little differently than Mark, even though he's still is a kid or whatever. So he's able to fly. We don't know where he is power level wise, but he's flying, and he wants to be a superhero just like Mark, you know. But, you know, and he kind of hid this from Debbie, and it's understandable why secrets would be such a nail in a coffin for this family, where it's just kind of like, no more secrets, like nobody hide anything, because this family had to deal with a massive secret that ended up destroying it, you know, massively, leaving a crater for both Mark and Debbie. So it's understandable why. And, you know, Mark is also sensitive when it comes to secrets. We'll talk about that later too. So, you know, it's kind of like a big thing of like, no, we need to be honest and open with each other. That's how we keep each other safe. That's how we stay together as a family. So it's constantly telling Oliver, like, no, like, you can talk to us. It's like, because Debbie later on is like, okay, you're trying to sneak off and be a hero. It's because you knew I was going to say no, right? She's like, that should be an indicator of, all right, maybe you shouldn't do what you're about to do. But as I get it, you want to help, and that's sweet. You feel the responsibility. You look up to your big brother, and you want to follow in his footsteps. You want to fight crime and save the day with him. I get that. But it's like, I want you to be safe. I want to make sure you don't accidentally hurt someone, because she knows what Mark had to deal with, that grief of killing someone. She saw firsthand what that did to him, and she doesn't want her other baby to go through that, you know? So It's understandable, and she just wants to do right by her family. She just wants to make sure they're okay, and she knows the responsibilities that Mark, it weighs heavy on Mark, and he's a teenager having to bear those responsibilities. What does that mean, putting that pressure on my even youngest, and especially because he's growing faster and faster every day, so that adds layers to it as well. So doesn't help when Cecil shows up, because he now knows Oliver's displaying powers, wants to take him to the lab to examine him, and it's like, you understand both sides of it. Once again, Cecil is a man of like, yo, I'm trying to do what's best for the world, but it's also, Debbie is a mom being like, I don't want this for my child. I don't want my child to be treated like a lab rat, and it's like, let's not mince words. Cecil has zero bedside manner, which comes with its benefits and its cons. But yeah, he can be an asshole, and you're like, I don't want my child around. Like, you already look at my son one way. I don't want my other child being viewed that way too. So it's understandable. Like I said, you understand both sides of it. I obviously lean more towards Debbie, but I also get like, oh, but it becomes that thing of, well, you're being selfish by wanting your child, who's a superpowered person, to have a normal life and not to be mixed up in this and not be a superhero. That's selfish on your part. And it's like, understandable. Any parent would be selfish in that regard of like, my child could go out there and get hurt or even get killed, especially knowing what's coming out there. For one, you don't know what's out there fully until it hits you, but also like, what's out there coming when it comes to the Viltrumites, and they will slaughter everyone, Mark included, but also Oliver, especially Oliver, because he will be viewed as an abomination, so like I said, I understand both sides of it, but I definitely lean towards, I'm the bleeding heart person that I am. So like, I'm going to like lean to more sympathetically and empathetically and emotionally with Debbie, because I'm also like, I understand where Cecil coming from, but fuck Cecil, You also have the whole Mark and Eve thing. Apparently, he's been avoiding Eve to the point Rex is like, yo, like, obviously you two have feelings for each other. Why don't you pull the trigger on that? And he's like, I don't know about that. He's like, are you like, why are you pushing it? He's like, that used to be your girlfriend. He's like, yeah, but I want you both to be happy. Plus, if you two get together, you'll kind of have owed me for forever for making that happen. So it's actually really sweet, because Eve was also there for him while he was kind of going through what he was going through. So it's like, right, despite us being where we are, and we know they have history like they do, that, it's understandable. Like he wants what's best for Eve. He wants her to be happy and everything. So, and he also, it's like, yeah, he even admits like, you guys are my friends. It was actually, oh, you're not, yes, you're still a snarky asshole, but you're not the, insufferable asshole that you were. You're an annoying asshole, just not as insufferable as you used to be, so. And so Mark talks to Rick and William about it, and he finally, he told them okay, I met that future Eve. What I didn't tell you was this. And they're like, okay, so ask Eve out, because obviously you like her. He's like, yeah, but I feel conflicted, because once again, that whole truth thing of, well, I kept secrets from Amber, and that kind of blew up our relationship from the beginning, and I don't want to make that mistake again. I do want to be honest from the beginning. I get that. That is a beautiful sentiment. But like William and Rick were saying, he should not have. He ends up telling telling Eve, he should not have told her. It's understandable, but you also have to think about the timey-wiminess of it all. Things are different. That's an Eve that went through a completely different life. This is an Eve that went through, the fact is that Mark got back and he was completely different, and her life went a different route, versus time changes. You asking out this Eve completely changes whatever that future may have been, or maybe you still go down that route. Who knows? Life is, you never know. You can't live life being so afraid of, oh, if I turn right, I'm going to be heading down that future route. But it's understandable too, with everything going on, and Mark's just worried, am I doing the right thing by asking Eve out? But like I said, William and Rick said it himself. It's that Eve you met is not the same Eve that's here right now. Love this Eve. You like this Eve. That doesn't necessarily mean she's going to be that Eve, but he kind of tells her eventually, and you're just I wish you hadn't, Mark. I really wish you hadn't told her. But it was also the thing of, But it, like, 'cause Rick had gave him advice of like, we don't know what like life can change in an instant, so you need to tell her how you feel while you have the chance. You know, you don't want to let time pass by. So he talks to her, and she's down for it, obviously, because Eve does like Mark. She's liked him for a while. I think even before she was dating Rex, those feelings were already kind of there to some extent. But I think, like, especially after Rex and everything, it became even more apparent, you know. But she was like trying to be a good friend to both Eve and, I mean, to Mark and Amber, so it's understandable. But yeah, like I said, Mark kind of put his foot in his mouth by telling her the truth. And for her, it's like, I think she has the right to feel that way. So it's like, wait, so you're only asking me out of pity. Which some people, I don't know if people are going to react the same way they did to the Amber thing. I've talked about it time and time again. Most people, I've heard a few people who come to Amber's defense, but most people are like that turned a lot of people away from Amber. I understand where she came from. I had made a whole video talking about it. I even made a short of it a little bit on here on YouTube, but it's like, it is what it is. I've kind of expressed my feelings on that situation. I'm in like defense of. I understand where both parties are coming from. I'm not, but I also like I defend Amber because I understand where she's coming from. But I understand but most people just kind of like, nah, fuck Amber. Like it is what it is, right? So I'm curious to see if people feel the same way about Eve's perspective on it. I mean, it is still the thing of you're only asking me out because you meant the future me, but it's like, no, Mark's just, it's, you. I could also see it from Mark's perspective of like, no, this is how I felt. And it's just like, it just confirmed how I felt. And it made me realize I need to take this shot while I have the chance. I need to. And he was debating it. And it's only until he talked to Rick and William that made him go like, no, pull the trigger on it. Because you do like her. You do care for her. You do have feelings for her. But but you can also understand from Eve's perspective. It's like, once again, you're listening to, yes, that's me, but that's a different version of me. Like I said, I keep going back to it, but I feel like it could easily turn into the whole like Amber thing. But I also feel like the internet probably won't be as mad, but it's still the thing. I mean, I'm sure people were upset with Mark from like, Mark, like he didn't say anything to Eve, you know, because he's been sitting on this for 3 months. So but he also tried to be, he was honest from the beginning, but it's still also the thing of, at least he came forthcoming to that information rather than waiting to the last minute to try and tell, like he tried to did with Amber, like, oh, we're not in a good space, and then tries to say like, oh, I'm invincible to try and repair it, or like, it's a little different because you're trying to start off the relationship like that by telling the truth. So it's a little different, but I don't know, man. Because I get both sides to it. Like I legitimately understand why Eve would feel, even if it's not like she's fully pissed about it, she's just kind of like, man, that's kind of sucky. It kind of puts a sour thing to this thing I was excited about. I was like, oh, I was excited about us being together. We understand the whole superhero thing. We've known each other. So it's like, it makes perfect sense for us to get together because we obviously like each other. And this kind of like puts a sour asterisk beside it. So I get it. And then there's also, I mean, life is, obviously she's still living out here in the tree house, but like, things are okay with her mom and dad. Her dad got like a job at another furniture store, so he's not working at Burger Mart anymore. So, but she's still keeping her distance. But she's also planning to go to college, interestingly enough, whereas Mark abandoned college just to go full superhero all the time. Well, just being Mark Grayson every once in a while, but like just only in living life and hanging out, but not, as Mark Grayson, a student. I am curious what he's going to do as his secret identity. Is he just going to be like, I'm Mark Grayson? I mean, I'm sure he's figuring that out as time goes by because he's just hanging around at home now because he's like, well, after everything, I think my mom likes having me and Oliver around, so that's extra reason for Mark to, pop in every once in a while and kind of stick around his mom, especially after everything. I'm sure that plays a role in him. Like, I also don't want to ever be too far away in case mom needs me. But yeah, like the point is now Eve's kind of going the college route, especially because she's going down the architecture and engineering route. Because it's like, I'm not an architect or like an engineer, so like if I want to, and it makes sense with your abilities that can basically shapeshift things into other things. Like if you have a more architectural background, the situation that had last season, the thing that your dad was rubbing in your face wouldn't have happened. So it's probably just going to help you in the long run with your abilities, but also, figuring out how you could apply your abilities to help the world. So I was not expecting, like, because they introduced it earlier in the episode about like, all right, there's these Donald's like, yeah, there's some like seismic activity stuff going on. It's a little here, a little there, and then they show up the map on where it's happening all over the U.S. And it's like, is it seismic? It's like, no, he's locked up. It can't be him. And then we find out, yeah, it was seismic. Just look, he was just pretending to be nonchalant. I was like, it's got to be like, because I thought like, okay, the recording's got to be tampered with or something, because it actually is seismic, isn't it? It's like, it is, but no, he was biding his time. He was just doing little vibrations here and there because he was speaking to his army underground. He was able to reach out to some creatures that were in like beneath Earth's crust, like his magma dudes from last season, as well as like some giant spiders and centipede creatures. And so they snatch up so much of the heroes and end up like cocooning them, and now they're all trapped. The only heroes available are Mark and Eve, which they go in. And I think someone had talked about this too. He is a joke villain in the comics apparently, but like even when he first pops up in episode 3 of season 1, it was still kind of like, oh, he's actually a little more badass than he is in the comics. And I don't know if this is kind of leaning into that more by being like, oh, he's even more dangerous now. Even though, because like, I don't think the episode, maybe I didn't catch the episode title. The episode title is like, you are not laughing now or something like that. Usually it's like the episode title pretty often is said in the episode, isn't it? Or am I being crazy? But I don't think that exact phrase was actually used in it. I mean, it was implied because seismic is a lot more deadlier. He took out a lot of the heroes. For him, it's like, oh, society, you guys still defend this capitalistic fascist world. So I'm going to crumble this whole thing. And I love when Mark and Eve showed up and he was like, oh, the diversity hire and the... What was the word he used? He was referencing Mark being kind of the diversity and her being the gender hire or whatever, just like playing into like the diversity role and the gender role. And it's like, really? Be Mr. Generic Mad Scientist? But yeah, he was kind of whooping some ass in the long run and kind of ended up taking everyone down. It's like, well, doesn't help that, Mark is faster and stronger. I'd almost wondered, I was like, are you still holding back? Which he still kind of is. He was holding back against Paul. He was holding back against those time travelers because he doesn't want to hurt anybody. He knows he's even more sensitive to that post the Angstrom situation. So that's going to make you hold back even more. So he's, once again, very, very, I feel like out of anyone, like you hear about it the most with Spider-Man, but I don't think he talks about it a lot until he really pops off. I mean, the same thing's applicable to Superman too, of like the whole holding back against people thing. But it didn't seem like Mark was holding back, but it's still the thing of he's not going full throttle. We've seen him go full throttle against the Viltrumites on Thraxa, but also against Angstrom. Once again, he's traumatized from that. But he kind of got poisoned and he got knocked out. But then, Cecil sent in the backup squad, the Reanimators, and Darkwing. The new Darkwing. His sidekick from last season is back. And now they came in and Mark is not too happy because I was like, oh, he doesn't know that Cecil did this. Because he didn't see this in season 1. Because the only person that witnessed that was Nolan. Because I don't think Cecil didn't utilize him at all last season. And if he did, I don't remember. I don't think he did. So, yeah, it's understandable. And Cecil hid that specifically from Mark. If we're really supposed to be partners, you should have all the cards on the table. But for Cecil, it's like, no. For multiple reasons. One, I never let everyone know what cards I have in my deck. Never. That's how you get like blindsided. It's like you always got to have some trump cards. You always got to keep secrets. You always have to compartmentalize who knows what and when. 2, he makes it perfectly clear by the end too. I can't let you, Mark, know everything because there's always a chance you and I won't see eye to eye. Even if there's always the element of, hey, you might break bad like your dad, which is sucky. That's always going to be a part of your mind. But it's kind of like the Batman thing of Batman has contingencies upon contingencies upon contingencies for the entire Justice League if they ever break bad, where it's like, yo, I need to take them down. Someone's got to be the asshole that's like, I'm ready if any single one of you becomes a threat. I don't want it to come to that, but I'd be an idiot not to have those contingencies. Once again, Cecil, I understand where you're coming from. Doesn't make you less of an asshole, but it's still, you're an understandable asshole, you know? So it's not like, oh my God, he's, you know, unreasonable. It's like, no, I get it. Doesn't mean you have to like it. You can understand it without, and, you know, not necessarily respect the decision, like I said, understand it. But yeah. So Mark, not too happy about all this. And Moto and the others are a little more like understandable. Like, hey, these guys came in and saved us if it wasn't for the reanimators and Darkwing. But for Mark, it's very black and white. Sinclair did a horrible thing, and you're letting him still do his research after all that he did. 2, Darkwing is a murderer. You're letting him out and about, you know, but like Darkwing's like, hey, I'm reformed. I'm not going to go down that route again. Which you're immediately like, yeah, but that's also the pot calling the kettle black type of situation in Mark's case. Cause it's like, you're not going to give Darkwing the same like leeway you gave yourself. But I mean, even though he does have guilt over it, there is a difference of, that is the only time Mark has ever killed anyone. We have no idea how many times Darkwing is done, and he's done it purposely, almost put these villains down. Mark was like in adrenaline fight or flight mode. You hurt my mom, I'm popping off on you because you're threatening to hurt my family again, and that's a no-no. You know, so it's a difference of he couldn't control himself, and that's why he's doing all of this. And I think that also plays into Cecil being an asshole. When they get into an argument, what does Cecil do? He immediately throws that in Mark's face. He has a tendency to do that. Once again, kind of like he always has something in his back pocket. Like, it is an asshole thing to throw that into his face. But it is also the thing, once again, it's such a back and forth because prison is supposed to be about reform. And it's like, but did they go through the proper channels of reform? Sinclair, no. Sinclair's only helping you because it means, like, oh, I get to do my research, and if I'm able to do what I'm going to do, it's cool. Like, he didn't go through the actual, I mean, Cecil says, like, oh, they've been, like, the way he makes it sound like they were psychologically brainwashed to kind of be what he needed them to be, you know, so it kind of strips some of their free will to some extent. He's also saying, like, the bodies used for the reanimator program are already, like, deceased people. They're volunteered bodies, so it's different, but it's still, like, that's a whole thing, because it's also like I mean, did those people, not let those people volunteer their bodies before they died? Did their loved ones volunteer them? Is everyone on board with that, or did you kind of like loophole your way around, like, well, this person agreed, their family wouldn't agree or consent to this, or maybe this person, you know, wasn't in a fine print? There's so much to it, because Cecil is a sneaky enough bastard for that to happen. Darkwing, did he actually spend any time in prison? Yes, no, who knows? But Cecil also is like, I need every weapon at my disposal, considering knowing what this world needs, just in general with everything that's going on Earth, but also the impending universe, like, planet-conquering super beings that are the Viltrumites. We need everything at our disposal. We can't be here with playing, like, with kid gloves. We need our entire arsenal out front. I need to know what we got and who we got. No one is sitting on a bench when it comes to this. Once again, understandable. And that's why I brought it up earlier, too. The whole, for Mark, things are so black and white. It's like, these guys are bad guys. You can't work with them. And it's like, you know, it's also because Mark's kind of learned not to work with bad guys, too. He got fucked over with the whole Titan situation in season 1. So it's like, I don't think he's done that again. Working with bad guys, I don't think he's done that again since, I think Titan was like the last time, and that was supposed to be, you know, that's where that lesson was. So I'm sure a lot of that informing his decision, but it's also like, once again, he tries to see things so black and white, because for him, it's like, if you start seeing the gray, which is what Cecil does. Cecil sees the gray. In fact, he lives and thrives in the gray, and you need to when you have that type of job. When you got to see the entire chessboard, you can't be so black and white about it. That's just that's the gig. You know, the gig is the gig is the gig. And in Mark's case, like I said, he has the benefit of being very, like, seeing things so black and white. And maybe you're like, that's the naivete of being so young and not seeing the world, the universe, for what it really is. And maybe that's part of the growth he'll have this season. But I think that's going to lead to some bad blood between him and Cecil, is this whole situation. Cecil doesn't do himself any favor when Mark is like, yo, I'm not leaving here until we throw Darkwing and Sinclair back in prison. And it's like, oh, everything in this room I've hidden away from you, Mark, it's for my protection against you. So it's like, cool, you're doubling down. Like, Mark wasn't going to kill you or hurt you, but you making him out to be the bad guy in this situation is going to push him even further. So I don't know if that's what the blue suit situation is. I talked about it. I was like, having never read the comics and the way people have talked around it, never any spoilers, but it feels like the blue suit is supposed to be Mark's version of Peter Parker going through the black symbiote arc of like having the black suit and everything. So we'll see where things kind of go from here with that. Also, we have our stinger at the end with Alan and Nolan, which Nolan's like, yo, leave if you want to leave before they kill you. You're stronger. You could get out of here. But Alan's like, I'm not leaving without you. Also, the food sucks here. You guys have all these advancements, but your prison food sucks. It's like, well, they're not planning on treating their prisoners with care. So it's like, you're going to die. Why would we give you good food? And then, like, it's like, oh, please, if they were going to kill me, I'm not going to worry about anything. They'd have to use a very big laser. Oh, it's a very big laser. Oh, shit, maybe we should talk about this. Turns out the laser, it stings, but it didn't kill him. It's like, wow, he's still alive. Which even he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You were concerned about me, Nolan. He's like, no. He's like, yes. Oh, my God. We are making progress. I think you're halfway there to join the coalition. Oh, you're being quiet. Oh, cool, you're being an asshole now. You're not talking. Well, this is not how new best friends operate. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that whole situation plays out as well. Some very interesting developments all around. I'm excited to see where the season goes. I avoided watching any of the teasers or trailers, so I have no idea what to expect from this season. Like I brought up at the beginning, earlier in the recording, there are 2 more episodes out, so I'm going to try to get to them at some point throughout the day. But yeah, I'm very, very excited to see where this all takes us. So happy to have Invincible back and just see where this season ends up taking us. It's going to be a emotional roller coaster yet again, like it always is, I'm sure. So things are probably going to get, well, like always, super gory and super emotionally traumatizing. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.